All right, guys. Welcome to training number 2 for how to do a joint venture real estate deal the right way. In the previous video, if you haven't seen it already, go ahead and take a look at that. I've shown you one way to lock up a contract via, or house rather, via flex option and bring in a buyer and exercise that option into a purchase and sale, and then get an additional purchase and sale from your end buyer, send everything over to title and close it. Now, that's one way to do it. In this video, I want to outline a couple things too. This particular seller is pretty solid on the numbers. This is in, uh, basically this is North Phoenix, basically. And you can see that they're saying the wholesale price is 139, and that's pretty much in line with what our report's saying, is that distressed market value, properties that are sold at a discount or that are in significant distress for repairs are sold for 133. You can see here 133, 667. So they're spot on with that. Um, this particular seller, by the way, or I should say original homeowner, bought for 56,500 back in what, 87. So if they didn't refi during the boom, and there's some due diligence you can do online to find out. Just look up the county records and see if there's been any refinances on the property. Um, this person may have it locked up for as low as that, if not less. Since they've made 25 payments since that time of who knows, 500, 600, 700 a month. So they may only owe 30 grand on the property. So again, the this particular investor I could tell is fairly savvy. They did a good job of running the numbers is the point I want to make out. So um, all right, let's get back to the second way to structure your wholesale deal, your co-wholesale deal, your joint venture, is that um, instead of the flex option, instead of the contract, instead of the stickiness, I guess, for lack of other term, involved with locking it up, having to do all these extra contracts, and then it being considered some type of Jay-Z chain, and to relieve a little bit of the headache for your title company, is that you can actually do something called an addendum to add buyer. Okay, so an addendum to add buyer, which means that if you weren't already in joint venture as a purchaser on the original purchase and sale contract, I'm talking about the one between the investor and the homeowner, right? Or the investor and whomever else. You can actually approach this same investor and say, hey, you know what? For this particular property, let's work it a little different. And this is going to take some trust. You may want to do your first co-wholesale deal the first way, which is flex option and then into contracts and into assignment. But you can do something that's a little less sticky for sake of the deal and for sake of your title company and buyer, which is addendum to add buyer. And what this does, this particular contract needs to be signed by your seller and the original seller. In this case, you realize there's two sellers here, right? In that investor's eyes, they're the buyer, but they're also the seller if they end up assigning you the contract. So you can just say, hey, look, you know what? Why don't we do a joint venture that's a little bit more involved? Add me to your original purchase contract. There's less paperwork involved. I will be having it locked up for what you have it locked up for, and you and I will do a 50-50 split. We'll have a second contract, a joint venture contract, and that could be anything. That could literally be an email for your title company. They'll accept an email from you saying, please split profits 50-50. But you want to have something written up in another agreement saying, on this date, XYZ enters into joint venture agreement on this property. If it is sold in the next 45 X amount of days, we will split profits 50-50. But what this addendum to add buyer does is it pretty much just places you on the original contract that investor has with the homeowner. So imagine that. It's the same as if you originally were with the investor in their home or whatever, signing that document, adding your corporation or personal name to the purchase contract. Now you're in a joint venture with this, particular investor. Okay. Now they may not go for that right away until you have a buyer, right? So you can apply the flex option again and just let them know that there's going to be two ways we can do this once you find a buyer. I can lock it up for what you want to sell it to me for and add my spread on top, if you will. I actually don't use the term spread, but I can go ahead and sell it for what I'd like to make. And Or if I get a buyer, when I get my buyer in there, you can add me to your original purchase contract and we can do a joint venture 50-50. It may be more money on the table for you. And that's how you're going to want to position it. You always should position everything into value for them, which is, hey, if you're selling to me for 111, what if I sell it for 150? You're going to miss out on a lot. Now, you're obviously not going to do that, but you want to be a little extreme and put it in perspective to them that there's going to be some money on the table they're missing out on. So rather than do that, Mr. and Mrs. Investor, let's do a joint JV. What do you got it locked up for? And sometimes they'll share that with you. They'll say, you know what, man, I have it locked up for 99,000 or 89,000. That's great. So let me send you over flex option contract. When I get my buyer, I'll send you an addendum to add buyer. Just you and this explain to your seller that your private investor, your money partner, whatever they can come up with, their investment partner, I'm bringing them in on this deal. All other terms will remain the same, and you get this addendum to add buyer signed. And it's very straightforward. It literally is whatever the original contract date was between them two. It's who's it's originated by, so it's going to be the seller. Here's the buyer's name, the investor's name, and their address, the seller's name and the seller's address, no broker. And then they just check this off here. And then they sign it and the seller signs it. And then here's your name that gets added. And then have them send you a copy. And then they're going to send us a copy to the title company you guys are going to use. Okay. So once you find your buyer, boom, you just go ahead and exercise your flex option, you know, and go from there. Exercise your flex option. Either go right into an addendum to add buyer, or go into, your contract for sale and get that other purchase contract from your end buyer for whatever amount. Remember, the numbers are pretty straightforward in this deal. We're locking it up for 111 to make $10,000. You're going to sell it for 121,000. Okay, so to put that into perspective again, in the first option where you're just locking it up flex and assigning it at title with your end buyer, your original seller, they make their capital on what they have it locked up for. They might have it for 100,000 and they made 11 grand when they sell to you, and then from 111 to 121 to your end buyer, you're making that 10 grand, $10,050 when you sell to your buyer. That's one way. In the same respect, if they have it locked up for 100 grand and you go enter into a JV, pretty much the same thing happens if the end buyer buys for the same, assuming your end buyer buys for 121,000. Now you guys are splitting the difference between what they have it locked up for because you use the addendum to add buyer to the 121. Only difference is there's not going to be two assignments here, because in the first transaction there was an assignment from, rather investor to you than you to other investor. In the addendum to add buyer, you are the buyer. You are now the buyer in the situation. So there's just one assignment. You see how much easier that is for your title company? That's the right way to do a true JV as a co-wholesale deal. And you did it with no money down, no marketing cost. Your EMD, earnest money deposit, was $10 or $100. That's a great way for a newbie, so to speak, to do their very first deal. And I have these tools to help me do that. If you guys are interested in getting a copy of these tools, by all means, visit the blog. I have them on there. The REI Leads on Demand is available. You saw how quickly I was able to find, an investor deal to jump in on. But there's hundreds of other deals here in the market. And if the REI Auto Comp's been out in the market for 2 years now, we have hundreds of users all across the U.S. That take advantage of that. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this training. If you do, like and share this. This is video number 2. Remember, if you haven't seen the first one, go back and watch that first one. And like and share this, and go ahead and go to the website and join our fan club. And if you get that newsletter, you're going to be the first to get these type of training videos. And you're welcome to contact me at any time. You can go to the website and fill out our contact us form if you have a question about real estate in any terms, whether it's about marketing, administration, building a team, virtual assistants, online marketing, offline marketing, talking to sellers, talking to buyers. I can definitely coach you on that. So thanks again for joining us on this great training. I am the REI Rockstar. Checking out. You guys have a great week and take care.